Talking about funding, do you think an NGO or a social enterprise writing the social accounts would facilitate them to get venture capital or attract funding from donors?
I think donors and people that hold money and are wanting to use it for some kind of benefit to society is that they're always interested in hearing the story about what organisations are doing in order to achieve social or community benefit. Now, up until now, that's been on up until recently, that's been on a fairly informal basis. So it's often the reputation of the organisation that holds sway in funders making decisions, or what little they know about them. Now, we think that should be much more on a formal basis, and that an organisation should, as a matter of its normal working practice, is that it should develop a system where it systematically accounts for its social, environmental and local economic performance, and also its impact on people that are benefiting from it. And I think that kind of formality, and you add to that the integrity coming from an audit process, gives funders and investors a lot more confidence in the organisation which they're funding, and they're always interested to see what kind of impact the money that they're using is having on the wider community. And so I think inevitably is that social accounting and audit is going to, in some form or another, is going to be increasingly important.
The concept of social accounting and audit is really picking up globally. Now, other than India and UK, can you tell us which other countries adopted this methodology?
Well, there's been a lot of interest from different countries, but there's an increasing interest in any kind of system that can be used by organisations creating a social benefit in developing systems that can account for that social benefit. So across the world there are a number of organisations looking at this area, and we've had people interested from the Middle East, nearly all parts of Europe, India obviously, Nepal, Southeast Asia, Australia, South Africa. Not so much in North America and South America, funnily enough, but across these countries I mentioned, or areas that I mentioned, is that there's been a lot of interest. Now, turning interest into practice has in some ways been quite tricky, and although people are looking at what we're doing, is that actually putting it forward as a system that they're wanting to adopt within their country, there's only a few countries that have actually done that. In Germany, there's been a certain amount of interest that has been significant enough to lead to courses and training sessions and workshops and trial programs and pilot programs. Also in Sweden, also to a degree in Spain. In Nepal, they're particularly interested, but they're sort of more interested in social accounting from the point of view of accountability to government, and seeing if government projects are actually making social benefit and to what degree in social benefit. So there's been a number of workshops and trial programs in Nepal. The one country that has recently taken it very much to heart has been South Korea, and there was somebody that attended a training course in Wolverhampton from South Korea, and he went back to South Korea and he set up San Korea. He's introduced nearly all the systems. It's become very important with social enterprises, and my understanding is that it's widely applied and certainly known about in Korea. Been interested from Australia over the years, and South Africa. There's also, running parallel with the interest in social accounting and audit, has been the interest in social return on investment. And social return on investment is, for one reason or another, has actually not so much clouded the area, but people are slightly confused about, is social accounting the same as social return on investment? How is it different? Should we be doing one thing or the other or both? And how do we actually sort of guide our own organisations and country structures through the morass and entanglements of measuring social impact and certainly accounting for social impact? But in SAN, we just keep on saying the same things. We've developed a manual, which we're calling the Guide to Social Accounting and Audit. It was updated in 2011, and it's selling quite well across the world. It takes people through the process, and we think that there's no getting away from the fact that in social accounting and audit, you've got to do certain things. One is to be very clear about what you're trying to do and who you're working with. Secondly, collect information to see whether or not you're achieving what you said you're achieving, and then bring it together in some kind of account, which doesn't have to be written, but in most cases it is, and then subject that to some kind of external audit. And that process, I think, is going to survive, whether or not the terminology of social accounting and audit will survive. But I think there's no getting away, is that organisations have got to do this in some form or another, and it's only right that they should, because their main business, their core business, is to create social change. And so if you don't account for social change, then aren't you missing out on the fundamental raison d'etre of an organisation?